The purpose of this video is to learn about system modeling, the Unified Modeling Language or UML, UML case diagrams, class and object diagrams, and deciding which type of diagram to use. UML is a popular way to diagram how a program works from beginning to end. Using UML, you can specify who the different actors are, so who's actually going to interact with the program, and then how they actually perform actions within the program. It is not a programming language, it's just simply a way to diagram how the program actually works. It uses a specific notation. There are specialized shapes and conventions that are going to be used, and by using these different shapes we can specify how the software should be constructed. Alright, so there are two broad categories that we use. We have structure diagrams and behavior diagrams. So I'm going to have a structure, which is going to be things like my program has a section asking the user for input. And then the behavior is going to be what does it do with that input. We're going to emphasize things. So we'll want to emphasize things like class diagrams, object diagrams, component diagrams, and so forth. Alright, so the behavior diagrams, this is going to be what happens when somebody does something. So if somebody clicks a button in the program, what should that button do? And then how do we actually interact with it? So if I click on a button, what should be the next thing the program does? Or is there a certain order that I need to fill things out before I can click on that button? Maybe I have a form that has text boxes and I have to fill out all of the text boxes, and then I click on the button, and after I click on it, then it will actually perform its function. Alright, so we have different variations. There's a whole bunch of these. There are over 800 pages worth of documentation for UML. So we're just very lightly going to touch on some of the stuff that you can do with it. We are going to play with what's called a use case. Now a use case is going to be how do we actually use the program. And so in this case we have a person, which is an actor. Now the actor over here could be something like the person actually using the program. It could be a timer. It could be some sort of other event that occurs. But the actor is going to be the person that calls a section of code to occur. Alright, so in this case we have a librarian, that is our actor, and our librarian can acquire new books and the librarian can check out new books. So if a patron comes in and asks the librarian, do you have a particular book? The librarian says no. The librarian has a function or a method available here to acquire a new book. But if the librarian says, yes, we do have the book, then they can check the book out to the patron. Alright, so what we can do is we can also extend some of the capabilities of our actor. So in this case, we have the ability to check out a book, but if it's a new patron, then we need to check out the book for a new patron, and maybe we need to add something like, this person doesn't have a card, so therefore we need to also let them get a card at the same time. And we denote this by using a dashed line, and then the word extend actually goes inside of brackets up here. Alright, so we can have variations too. So I could say that we're going to check out a book, but a variation of checking out a book would be that I want to check out a book for a new patron. So in this case it still functions the same. We still check out a book, but I also want to issue a new card to the person. Alright, and so the way that we do this is it looks the same. It's still a dashed line, but then we use the word include inside of brackets. So in this case, our actor is the librarian. The librarian acquired a book. Somebody came in to check out the book, and they came to check out the book, but they're a new patron, so we need to check out the book for a new patron. Alright, so we also had to include, at the same time of checking out the book, the ability to give a library card, and then we're also going to register the new patron. So for me to perform this function of check out book, we have to do some other things first. So we're going to check out the book, but we have to register them. They're a new patron. We have to give them a library card, and then we can check out the book for them. So you'll notice that check out the book is extended to check out new book, and we have to register them and then give them a library card before they can actually check out the book. Alright, so then we can show multiple actors. So here in this case we have a librarian, and then we have a library clerk. Alright, so the library clerk is able to check out books and register new patrons, but the library clerk doesn't have the ability to buy new books. So in this case, you'll see here the librarian can purchase new items. Alright, so and then we also extend that so they can purchase new items. Well, what kind of items? They can purchase videos, CDs, maybe they have books, DVDs, whatever else that you can get from the library. But the librarian is the only one that can order those things based on this diagram. We also can use class diagrams, which we've used these before. This is going to be something where I want to make a particular object. And so we've used these before where this is the name of our class. These are all of the attributes that we have for the class, and then these are going to be our methods that are available. Now, when we declared a class of objects, these were attributes that the methods down here interacted with. It doesn't always have to be that way. That's just a very specific type of UML class diagram. All right, but what we can do is we can specify that we have child classes. And we talked about this before. We had a parent class and then we had derived classes. And so this would be our base class up here, library item. And a library item is either a book or a video. And we have other things too, but in the case of this particular diagram, that's all we have. So we have a library item. Book is a derived item from library item, which means if I get a new book, the new book's going to have an author, an ID number, and a title. If we get a new video, then the new video will have a running time, an ID number, and a title, because it will inherit the properties from the parent object. We can also show relationships between these, and the way that we do this is we're going to specify that two different classes somehow are related to each other, and that they also have the ability of using this thing called cardinality. Now, cardinality is going to be that we can specify how many of something in one class should be related to something in another class. All right, so if I were to say that for each person that we have, let's say we have a list of people and we have a list of email addresses, it is possible for one person in the person class to have anywhere from no email addresses to many email addresses. All right, so what we can do is we can specify how many they're allowed to have. In this case, we have a library, and the library has a community name, director name, street address, phone number, and methods for creating and getting info. All right, so the library also has library items, and it's possible for this one library to have anywhere from no items to an infinite number of items. We call this many. So this is what's called a one-to-many relationship. For each one library, it's possible for them to have no items. It's possible for them to have many items. So we denote this by this 0, dot, dot, and then asterisk. Now, we can have what's called a lower bound and an upper bound. And the lower bound here in this case is going to be 0. It's possible this library doesn't have anything. You know, all their shelves are bare. But it's also possible that their bookshelves are all full, and they could have however many books or other items that they want. So we denote it with this. If it's exactly 1, or exactly some amount, then we list that number. If it's a range, we list it like this. So the range here, like I said, is going to be from 0 to infinity. We just simply call it many. All right, so what we have here is we have a library that has library items. Each library, for each one library, they could have anywhere from 0 to many library items. And then for each one library, they could have anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of patrons. So it's possible for a library to not have anybody that comes in and checks out books. It's possible for a library to not have any items. But it's also possible for a library to have thousands of items and thousands of patrons. So our range is this one library could possibly have anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of items. It's possible for this one library to have anywhere from for this one library to have anywhere from 0 to many patrons, but we're going to say that each patron is only allowed to check out at most 5 items. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to show a relationship between the items and the patron. And so now the difference here is that our patron, is possible that we don't have any patrons that have anything checked out right now. So it's possible that nobody has anything checked out. In that case, that would be that for no patrons over here have no library items over here. So it's possible to have anywhere from 0 to 1. All right, so what that means is for each patron that we have, it's possible for nobody to have anything checked out. Or it's possible for each one item or one person here, each one person could have anywhere from 0 to 5 library items checked out. So we're showing a range here, and this cardinality just simply gives us a means to see how many are allowed. So let's say Bob is one of our patrons. Well, it's possible for Bob to not have anything checked out. It's possible for Bob to have 3 items checked out. it's possible for Bob to have 5 items checked out, but if Bob tries to check out a 6th item, it gets denied. So therefore, it's possible for Bob, one patron over here, to have anywhere from nothing checked out to 5 items checked out. We can also have what's called a whole part relationship, which just simply means that the child objects have to all be completely filled out to make up a whole item. All right, so in this case we have the library has the community name, the director name, the street address, the phone number, and then our library is made up of different departments. So what we're going to do is we're going to specify that we have a circulation department, we have a reference department, and for an object to get to be created, it has to have all of this information filled in. It is not possible to create the library unless we have the circulation department filled in and the reference department filled in. We can have a specific object diagram. So this is, instead of stating that we have a generic class, this is generic. You know, it's possible for us to have a library, it's possible for us to have an item, it's possible for us to have a patron. Well, instead of it being possible to have the blueprint, we can actually specify using the same type of diagram that we actually have an object. This is where in the prior lesson when we talked about parent and base classes and derived classes and so forth, where I was talking about the index cards. So it's possible that we have a library, but in this particular instance of it, the library has a name. It's Oakwood. It has a director name of Hannah Scott. It has a street address of 100 Main Street. It has a phone number. It has library items, and in this case, this particular library item has an ID number of 23776, and it's the color purple. And this particular item is checked out by Carl Baker, who lives at 185 Willow Street. So we're simply stating that, yes, we do have these items, we do have this class of items, but we're going to instantiate one particular object, and then we're going to fill in the information that's on the card. We can also use, what's called a sequence diagram. Now, a sequence diagram shows the order of events that occur. All right, so what we're going to have is we have a librarian that if you start here and follow the dotted line, in terms of time, we start at the top and we work our way down. And anytime we have one of these little things here, these are branches, so we're going to follow this line. So as I go down through the line here, we stop here, we go up here. So the librarian is going to look at a book checkout record. All right, so this thing occurs. They're going to try to check out a book. So we start on this timeline. So we start going down, and then we see, okay, get info. So now it's some sort of ID number. Then we go over and get information. And the information that we get comes from the patron. All right, so the patron has to do something. So we ask them, what's your ID number? All right, so the patron passes back info ID number. And then we keep working our way down. And then we're going to say get info ID. So we're going to get information about the book now. Then we're going to go down and we return that information about the book, and then we work our way down and go back over to the librarian, and now we have a checkout record. So what happens is sections of these timelines get ignored. So anytime we work our way from one to the next, there will be sections of the timeline that get ignored. But what happens is from the beginning of the program all the way to the end, all of these lines, there will be some place working down that will be filled in at every point on one of these lines. We will get some more of those and show you how they work a little bit more in just a minute. We can have a communication diagram, and a communication diagram works kind of the same, except now instead of drawing those vertical lines and trying to show where you are at any point in the program, what we're going to do is we're going to specify for this particular event, we're going to ask the patron, we're going to get some information from them. You'll see you have 1.1, so this is record 1, and then step 1. So what we're going to do, object 1 is step 1. So we're going to ask them for the information, and then they're going to get information for us and pass it back. So here's 1, 2, then we get information about the book, and then we pass that information back. So what we're going to do is we're going to start filling out information on the checkout record. And so we get some of the information from the patron, we get some of the information from the book, and then when everything's filled out, then we actually go back and check out the book for them. We also have what's called a state machine, which a state machine just simply shows you beginning to end, how does your program actually work. This is more like a typical flow chart, except we're leaving all of the individual steps out. So what we're really doing is, when we wrote our programs before, we would comment little sections of code. So this section of code is going to declare variables. This section of code is going to ask for input. This little section of code is going to perform a calculation. This little section of code is going to provide output, and then we end our program. That's a state diagram. So we're not stating exactly how the program works. We're just simply stating these are the major steps as we go along that are going to occur throughout the program. So in this case, we're looking at publishing a book. So potentially adopting it, we're going to wait for the library to approve it, then we order it, we receive the book, we add it to the catalog, then it becomes part of our circulation, and then at some point the book would get retired, and then our program ends. So a state machine is just simply what is the current state of this particular object. And it's typically going to be that we create the object, we populate it with data, we do something with it, then we deconstruct the object when we're done with it, and then our program's done. All right, we can also have activity diagrams. These function the same way. These are more like our selection statements. So we're going to start off with patron requests something. In this case, they're asking for a book, and the question is, does the library own the book or not? All right, so in this case, if the library owns the book, we go to this side. If the library does not own the book, then we go to this side. And so if the library owns the book, we're going to perform the function for retrieving the book. If the library does not own the book, then we're going to go to this side, and we're going to contact interlibrary loan. But either way, once we finally get the book and give it to the person, then we're going to let them check it out. All right, so yes, we have to make a decision. Yes, there may be a wait here of a couple of days for the book to show up. But either way, we're going to end up with the same output, which is that the patron was able to check out the book. We also have what are called forks, and a fork works kind of the same way. So in this case, the member library requests book. Okay, so we have a function that somebody asks for the book. And then we go down here and we're going to fork off. So one of these is possible. And we're simply stating that anything off of this line is a possible next step. All right, so if we ask for the book, then we're going to ask Oakwood, do you have the book? And typically the way that it'll work is we start at the left side and work our way across. Does it have to work that way? No, but that's typically how we're going to demonstrate these. All right, so we're going to say, Oakwood, do you have the book? They say no. We say, Lake Heights, do you have the book? They say no. We say, Littletown, do you have the book? Yes, they do. Okay, so then we're going to request the book from them. All right, so what happens is we branch off, or we fork here. The fork means that one of these is going to run. And then when we're done, we rejoin, so our program goes back to its normal running state here. So you'll see here that we just kind of branched off here to perform these three queries. And if any of these came back as yes, so let's say we started off and said, Oakwood, do you have the book? Yes, then it's just simply going to keep going in the program. But we're only going to continue to the other ones if they didn't match our criteria. We also have things where we will try to perform functions based on time. All right, so in this case, we have the patron requests a book. Our options are going to be that the book isn't available right now. All right, so we're going to perform some actions when it becomes available. Or somebody else checked out the book. All right, so what we're going to do is if somebody has the book checked out, we're not going to let them renew the book because somebody else wants to check it out now. So what we do is we wait for the time to pass where the book is actually due, and then that is represented over here by this hourglass. And so when the due date becomes available and the book is checked out, then we're going to send a request to them that, hey, we want you to return the book. All right, we can do component diagrams. So this is going to be that our program is made up of a library database. Somebody places a piece of paper on the desk, says, I want to borrow this. The library looks in the internal database, says we don't have it. We're going to go out on the internet and search for it. And when they perform a search, they'll get back a database table that looks something like this, where we have a list of patrons and a list of books, and then we can get information back. We can also have a deployment diagram. So this is going to be more like our network diagrams that you've used in other classes. So you'll have a list of all of your computers, all of your hardware devices, the internet, all of your networking equipment, everything would be listed in these. All right, so one of the things that we're going to do also is when we write our programs, we're supposed to be using our try-catch blocks. We always want to try to handle exceptions that could possibly occur. We can actually specify those in UML. All right, so the way that we do this is our try block here is going to be listed here like this. Inside of this, it's a rectangle with rounded corners. And then we list the jagged lines like this to show if an exception occurs of a type high-find exception, then we perform this action. If an exception occurs that's called expired card exception, then we're going to perform this action. If an exception occurs that's book on hold exception, then we perform this action. So we're just simply stating that our try is here, all the stuff in here is try, and these are going to be our catches, and then our finally can be listed down here. So why are we using UML? Well, one of the things that it does is it makes it real easy for people that are non-technical programmers to possibly understand the flow of the program. So what may happen is you may be forced to sit in a meeting with upper management that have no clue how programming occurs, and they're going to ask questions like, well, why do we go from this screen to this screen and so forth, and we can actually pull out the UML and walk them through in a graphical manner how the program works, and we can also give them different views. And along with it, there's also one more major benefit, which is there are programs out there that allow you to simply draw the UML, and these programs will turn around and will automatically build your database, will automatically build your program for you, and all you had to do was just simply generate the UML. Well, for that to occur, your entire program has to run correctly, and I'm sorry, not run correctly, but your entire UML has to be drawn correctly, and in that way the system can take whatever you've modeled and build the actual program. Early in the semester we used a program, or actually a website called Lucidchart, to make some flowcharts, and then from there we moved into using other programs. Well, we're actually going to go back to using Lucidchart. If you did not create an account, please do so. You need to go to lucidchart.com and then log in, and make sure you specify that you're a student when you sign up for the account, because it will give you a free account with some added features. Alright, so when I'm logged in, I want to make a new document, so I'm going to click up here for the arrow beside document, and what I want to specify is that I'm making a UML document, which if I scroll down through the list you'll see UML, and I'm just simply making a blank UML. It will open a new tab in a couple of seconds. It will actually give me a basic document, and so here it is. So if I scroll down through the list on the left here, I have UML, and then I have UML states, and I have sequence objects. So these are what we're actually going to be playing with here in just a minute. Alright, so we talked about things like I have my actors, and I have my methods that they can actually perform. Alright, so the first one, I just want to demonstrate how to actually make a use case. So we have an actor, and in this case we have a patient that's going to go visit the doctor. Now our patient has to make an appointment. Alright, so the question is, how does this person make an appointment? Well, we're going to use a use case here. It's just this oval, and so they're going to make an appointment. And when we list these, we're typically going to list them as a method. And you need to make it a little bit wider so that way it all shows up in there. Alright, so this person here is going to make an appointment. So what I'm going to do is I want my handle to show up like this, and I'm going to drag an arrow up to here. Now the thing is with the use cases, we want this to be a straight line. So I'm going to click right here with this arrow, and I'm going to change it to a straight line. And so now the other thing that I want is I want a black arrow to show up pointing to make appointments. So up here is my left end and right end of my line, and I can put different types of arrows on it. You can see that they're changing. So I want this black arrow, and that way we can see that this person makes an appointment. Well, when you make an appointment as a patient, there's somebody else that actually has to make the appointment for you. So we're going to have another actor involved, and this actor is going to be the receptionist. Now what's going to happen is every time I draw a line, I'm going to end up with this curved line again, and I don't want that to occur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to Graphic and go to Theme, and there's an option here to select shape to use as default. So I'm going to click on this, and you'll see that this thing grays out a little bit, and it says click a shape or line to use as the new default style. I'm going to click on the one that I've already specified as being straight, and now what you'll notice is that it changed where my lines with arrows will look like this. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw from this person, and you'll see that I get my line, and I want my right arrow, or my right side, to have the arrow. And the way that this works is this is the beginning of the line, this is the end of the line. So it doesn't necessarily specify which direction the arrow is pointing. It's just simply, did I start here or did I start here? Alright, so this is the beginning of my line, this is the end of my line, so this is beginning, this is end. Alright, so when I made the appointment, the person at the doctor's office is the one that actually took the appointment for me. Okay, so this is going to be something like a receptionist Okay, it could be a nurse, it could be somebody else that made the appointment. So the question is, who did it? All right, so as a patient, I have the ability to make an appointment. I have the ability to cancel an appointment. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to make these all the same size. So instead of doing this, what I could do is I could set these as a default, or I can copy them. So I'll show you that in just a second. All right, so I want to cancel the appointment. And these would actually be the names of my methods. So I'm going to start right here and I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to start over here and draw a line because this reception is also going to be responsible for canceling my appointment. Okay, I could have another one for checking my appointment. So I'm going to move these up out of the way a little bit. And I'm going to copy this and paste it. So I just did Control C and Control V. All right, so this one's going to be, maybe I want to check the appointment. And so as a patient, I can call in and I can say, hey, I think I have an appointment on Friday. Can you tell me what time it is? And the receptionist can tell us the time. All right, so then as a patient now, I'm also going to come in and talk to the doctor. So I'm going to bring my patient down here a little bit so you can interact with the doctor. I have another actor, and our actor here is going to be the doctor. Okay, and so the doctor is going to have a method here, and so our doctor here is going to perform checkup. And so our doctor is the actor on this one, and it acts upon this person, so we're still going to list that it's happening with the person because we're showing all the people that have anything related to each other. All right, and then afterwards, the doctor is going to prescribe medicine. All right, so the doctor prescribes a medicine, and I've lost my arrows here, so I need to fix those. I didn't realize it wasn't providing the arrows, so I'm going to put those back on here. All right, and then our person here is prescribed medicine. Okay, and then when we're done, we have to leave and we have to pay the bill. All right, so when we leave, I'm going to move them down so you can interact with somebody else. So now we have our clerk, or whatever you want to call it, the person that's responsible for collecting the money. And this is going to be make payment. And the clerk is going to accept the payment. And the person is going to make the payment. But now there's a possibility here, which is that part of our payment may actually come from an insurance claim. All right, so what's going to happen is that this person is going to make the payment, but they're also going to file an insurance claim. So I'm going to paste this. Okay, so now this is going to be a little bit different. This time, instead of having an actor, I'm going to have where this thing is going to be file insurance claim. Okay, so now what happens is this clerk is going to be responsible for collecting the payment that I've made, but they also have to file the insurance. So this is going to be a dashed line, and to change that, click on the line. To change it, you can select the line here. And the thing with this is it knows that if I'm connecting one use case to another use case, it'll automatically give me the right kind here, except the arrow may be incorrect. So I want to specify the arrow on the end of it as whichever type we want. So we're going to have an arrow pointing up this way to make payment. And so what happens is this is an extended object. Now if I click on this, you see there's a little T right here. And what I can do, if I double click on that, then I can put my extend. Oops, that was supposed to be two brackets like this. And now what we can do is we can move this and say that this extends it. So there we go. So now we have the ability for this clerk to make or to accept a payment that I've made, and then they're also going to turn around and file the insurance claim. All right, so what I want to do is I want to save it. So I'm going to go up to File, Save As, and I just simply want to call this UML Doctor Office. And then when I click OK, what it will actually do is it will save that as one of my documents on my login screen, where it collects all of your documents. Now, what I need to do though is I want to save this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, and instead of saving it as a Lucidchart document, I want to download it as, and I have the ability to download it as a PDF file. Alright, so I can also download it as a JPEG, PNG, Visio, but I'm just simply going to download this as PDF, and then it wants to know the contents, and the contents are going to be the entire document. So when I click download, it will generate a file for me, and then it will ask me to save it. So I went ahead and saved it there. And so now once it's saved, then I can run it and it will open up just as a regular PDF file. And so now I can see this is all the stuff that makes... Alright, this time I'm going to make another document. Once again, it's going to be UML. Alright, and then what we want to do is we want to create a bookstore. So this one's going to be called Bookstore. So I'm going to call it UML Bookstore. And I want to add an actor. Now this is going to be a little bit different. This one's going to be a sequence. So I have my actor, and my actor here is going to be the customer at a bookstore. Now the sequence is going to be that the user comes into the bookstore, they perform a query, and then the query gets placed against the database. So we're going to have some objects here. And our objects are going to be things like our bookstore. And then we also have a database somewhere in the background. Okay, so what happens is we're going to perform a query, and we're going to ask the database something to tell us if this book exists or not. Alright, so what I want to do is I want this lined up so they're nice and neat, and then we can include a line. So I'm going to go down from him, from the customer, and just simply draw a line. Now what I'm doing here is I just want a blank line that has dashed marks on it. So we're just going straight down. And then we're going to do the same thing with our store, and it's just a dashed line. And we're going straight down with our database, which is just a dashed line. Now these should not have arrows on them, so I'm going to make these none for the arrows. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make it where the user comes in, the customer comes in and performs a query. So the query is going to be something like, do you have the book? And then we ask the bookstore, do you have the book? Then the bookstore turns around and looks in the database, and then the bookstore comes back and tells the user, yes, I have it, or no, I don't. And then we show the user the list of available books that we have. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sequence here. And so this person, the entire time that this is going on, the customer is involved. So in this particular case, we'll actually have the customer involved the whole time. And so what happens is the customer is going to ask the bookstore, do you have a book? Alright, so we have the bookstore is going to perform an action here. And the bookstore is going to look up to see if they have the book. And they only have a short period of time when they're actually running. And then they're going to perform a lookup in the database. And you'll notice here that the bookstore interacts with the database, but the ending of the bookstore should be at the beginning of looking at the database. So then we look in the database, then we go back to the bookstore again, and we say, hey bookstore, we have the book or we don't have the book. And then the bookstore turns around and tells the user. Okay, so what happens is our user is trying to look at the bookstore and ask to see if they have a book. Okay, so what I want is, same thing as before, I want these to be straight lines. So I'm going to change this to a straight line, and I'm going to go to graphic here and set my theme to select shape as default to this particular line. I want all my lines to be straight with no elbows. Alright, so then what we do is we're going to state here in the message, which I double clicked on it to do this. Step 1 is that I want to browse. So I'm trying to browse for some information. Now step 1 is made up of a couple of parts. Alright, so the first part of this here is going to be 1.1, we're going to perform query. Alright, so we perform the query, and then the database will perform some sort of response back to the website. So step 2 of part 1 is to provide response. Okay, so the database will reply that yes, we have the book, or we don't have the book. And then the bookstore will turn around and tell us that they have the book or they don't. And if they do, then they will show a book list to us. And this should be a method up here, so we're going to put browse. Okay, so the way that this works is you can look at this and go straight across. Okay, the customer comes in, we browse, we ask the bookstore, do we have the book? So we perform a query. Do you have the book? Yes, we're interacting with the database. When we're done interacting with the database, we go back to the bookstore. So imagine this being a clerk at the bookstore or something like that. And then we're going to provide a response from the database back to the bookstore. Have it, don't have it. If we have it, then we show a list of all the books. And then that's the last thing that we ask, so the program is actually just simply going to end. Alright, so in this case, we have the customer interacts with the bookstore interacts with the database, and we have the sequence of events that this occurs. The customer is our first, he's the person, he or she is the person that causes this to do something. When they interact with it, they browse. They cause the bookstore to interact with the database. The database provides a response, which causes the bookstore to interact with the customer again. And then now that we're done with our interaction, the program actually ends. All right, so same thing as last time. Go to File, Download As, save it as a PDF, and then save it as number 2, which is the bookstore. All right, this last one I want to make is going to be UML to make a purchase order, and I want to show how it works. So what I did was I clicked on more shapes down here at the bottom, and I want to turn on this entity relationship. Go ahead and click Save. And what that'll do is that will actually provide a new section to me over here that has things that allow us to make entity relationship diagrams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this first one here and drag it over. Now, just like I did the lines before, I need to specify a couple things. And what you'll notice is that these have rounded corners on them. For an actual entity relationship diagram, we don't want to use rounded corners. So I'm going to come back over here to Graphic, and I need to change a couple of the settings here. So for my particular object here, I want to specify that the radius is of 0 inches. So I'm moving this down to 0. And then what that actually does is it makes it where this is rectangular corners on it. And then I want to go back up here to Theme and select Shape to use as default, and I'm going to select this ERD. And the reason for this is that I want it to be where when I make other ones, I want them all to be shaped the same. So I want them to all have squared off corners. Okay, and then along with it, I want to be able to connect these together. And you'll notice that now when I connect them together that I get my elbows, so I get my 90 degrees. And then if I do this though, they're going to have right angles on them. Alright, so this is what I want, so I'm going to go and delete this. I don't need it yet. The purpose of this is going to be that I want to have a purchase order. Okay, so we're going to make a database behind the scenes somewhere that keeps track of purchase orders, or maybe these are objects. And the way Lucidchart works is that you can specify how many fields you have. So I only want 2 fields here. And my first field is going to be something like a PO order number. Just call it PO number. And the next item here is going to be date ordered. Alright, so then what we're going to have is on every purchase order that we have, we're going to have things like all the items that are on it. So a purchase order is going to be, I want to order 3 pieces of paper, I want to order 5 pens, each pen costs so much, each pen will have a description and so forth. So we're going to list every one of those things. So I'm going to have another item here, which is another entity, and in this case is going to be line item. Okay, so what things are on it? So everything is going to have an ID number. So let's call it ID number. Then the next thing is going to be maybe a description, price each, and then I want to add another field for quantity. So how many did we order? QTY. Alright, so these two are related somehow, so I'm going to draw a line between them, and I want this to be right angle, but what we're doing is we're going to show cardinality here. And the way that we're going to show cardinality is going to be that we're using these little symbols on the ends of it, but that's not really what I want. So what we're going to do is we're going to change these ends here, and the beginning end here is going to have have nothing on it. So if I scroll up, it says none. And then on the other end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set that to none. Okay, so now there's my line. Now the thing is that a purchase order has to be made up of line items. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that every purchase order has to be made up of however many line items there are. And the way that I tell that is by changing the end of this to this diamond shape. So this diamond shape says each purchase order has to be made up of all of its line item parts. So I can't make up an entire purchase order unless I have all of the line items. Alright, so how do I get the line items? Alright, so what I'm going to do is I want to include some text on our line here. And so to do this, I'm going to double click on it and we get text. And now the text here is going to be, it's possible for me to have a purchase order that's made that just simply has nothing on it. Or it's possible for me to have a purchase order with 5 million line items. So it's possible for me to have anywhere from 0 to many line items. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I press enter and I'm going to drag this up and put it right beside the box. So what this says is that anywhere from 0 to many line items can occur. Okay, so I'm going to double click again up here, and now I get the ability that for each one purchase order, and exactly one purchase order, each one purchase order is possible of having anywhere from 0 to many line items. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the one up here. So now what this says is each one purchase order is possible to have anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of line items. Alright, so then I want to know who the customer is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another one of these. I'm going to get my ERDs again, which ERD is Entity Relationship Diagram. Alright, and this is going to be the customer. And each customer is going to have an ID, so I'm going to say customer ID. And then they'll have something like a customer name, and then they'll have something like a telephone number. Okay, so I'm specifying that each customer has these things. Now a customer could have more than this. Alright, but what we're going to have is each purchase order that we have is going to have one exact customer on it. So I'm going to change my ends of this line again to none, and change the ends here to none. And so what we're going to say is that every single customer over here and every purchase order here, it is possible for me to have a customer that does not have a purchase order, but it is not possible for me to have a purchase order without a customer on it. Alright, so the way that we're going to show this is that every customer that's over here and every purchase ID or purchase order, we need to know who's on it. Okay, so for every one purchase order that we have to have exactly one customer. But if we don't have a purchase order, then we don't necessarily need to have a customer with it. So what we're going to say is on this side of the line here, double click on the line, we're going to say that it's possible for me to have anywhere from 0 to many purchase orders for every one customer. So it's possible for one customer to have no purchase orders. It's possible for one customer to have many purchase orders. But it is not possible to have a purchase order without a customer. There always has to be a customer listed. Alright, so that's our basics for an entity relationship diagram. And then what we can also have is we can have sub-items. So we could actually come over here and say, you know, a line item could be made up of products, and it could also be made up of services. Alright, so we could have something like this where we state that this is made up of products and, oops, didn't mean to grab the box, I meant to draw a line. So it's possible for me to have products and services, and these are the items that would make up our line item up here. So once again, we're going to set nothing in the ends. And then on this line, same thing, we're going to set nothing in the ends. Okay, so our line items could either be products or they could be services, and every product that we have would have a product ID. Maybe it'll have a name, and it will have a price. And then every service that we have will also have a service ID. It will have a name, and it will have a price. So what we can do is we can specify that this price would override the price up here. And so maybe if we have a service that is $30 an hour, then we have a quantity of 2, it just knows that the price of it is this. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to specify that these things make up this up here. Alright, so now if I look at it this way, it kind of looks like both of these are related somehow. So to specify that they're not, I'm going to make these straight lines. And so I'm going to do this. Okay, so now what I can do is now I can show the cardinality. For every item that we have on here, it's possible for this thing to be a service, or it's possible for it to be a product. Alright, so if it's possible for each product to be listed here 0 times, or each product to be listed here 1,000,000 times. Alright, so I'm going to say down here for this, it's possible for each one item to be listed anywhere from 0 to an infinite number of times. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I accidentally put that on the wrong line, so I want this line over here, 0 dot dot asterisk, and they'll actually both work out exactly the same anyhow. So I'm going to move these around, and then for each one item, or each service here, it's possible for each service to be listed 0 times, or it's possible for each service to be listed many times. So this is the basics of setting cardinality in an entity relationship diagram. We're just simply showing how many is possible for it to show up on each thing. So if I look at this, I could say, alright, so it's possible to have a purchase order, and it's possible to have a purchase order with no line items on it. It's possible to have a purchase order with 1,000,000 line items on it. But each line item is either going to be a product or service. So it's possible for each product to be listed 0 times, because I could just simply sell a line item that's only services. And it's possible for the services to be listed 0 times, because I could just simply sell products. But when I sell it to a customer, each one customer over here is possible to not have any purchase orders, maybe they've never bought anything from us, or it's possible for them to have many. Alright, so same thing as before, save this as a PDF and download it. In this lesson, you learned about what the UML is, how it's used for system design. You learned about the use case diagrams and how to show how things interact with each other. You used the class diagram so you could show the names and attributes of different things that are in our class objects, and also to show how the class objects are related to each other. You learned what a sequence diagram is and show that it shows the timing of events to occur within a case. We talked about communications and state diagrams. We also discussed activity diagrams. Those are going to show the flow of actions in a system. We talked about the component diagram, which is kind of like a network diagram. We have deployment diagram that also focuses on our hardware that we have. And then we also talked about the profile diagram. We discussed that exception handling can also be demonstrated using UML, that we have different types of diagrams, and that the purpose of UML is to make better understanding between technical and non-technical users, and also to allow applications to build our programs and our databases using our UML case statements. So my program and my UML case for the doctor office.